Yeah. Have you compared your two?
No, not yet. Not yet. And just while I'm talking, I want to bring up a couple things that are on my mind. So I'm the person that wrote, I think we should be centralizing questions that improve conclusions we can draw on within subject comparisons. I have never wanted to make between group claims or anything like that. Now, I know we could do better to understand device differences and things like that, but really, ultimately, we shouldn't be expecting the device to do things it was not designed to do. So I think we have to be careful about that. I think we also have to be careful with critique of the device, especially in public or academic facing publications, because we don't have better options yet. So we can't kill this one while it's our best option. So I want people to just have that in mind when we're doing reviews or protocols or whatever. Let's not shoot ourselves in the foot with this because we're trying to do good science. We need to be careful, of course, but I just worry about that.
And then another point is that I was thinking was that, you know, if there is a difference in the readings that we get from different Veggie meters, then if we ensure that we use the same equipment with the same participant, because at the end of the day, we're looking for statistically significant differences. So if we use the same device with the same, at the same, you know, nutrition education program setting, or with the same population, with the same group, then, you know, even if there's a difference in the readings between the Veggie meters, it won't affect our study results because we've used the same equipment with that group of study participants. So I think that's something that we can easily do, is to use the same Veggie meter for the pre and the post assessment with the same participant.
So that's actually one of the, I didn't go through all of the recommendations that were present in the recommendations paper, just for the sake of time. That is one of the recommendations we have. So if you have multiple devices and you're doing a pre-post measurement, to ensure that you're using the same device with the same participants. So having that be a part of your data recording process to know which device is being used for that exact reason.
Yeah, and then the fact that, you know, we're getting like, you know, different readings by 10% between different devices, I feel like that's something that the company needs to address. I don't think it's even a calibration matter. It's more the precision of measurement here, and they need to fine tune their machines a little better.
It's hard because I think touching on the different factors that can differ, like if someone is in the sunlight 2 weeks before a measurement, but they weren't there pre-measurement, then is it the device or is it just some, I mean, we work with humans, they're so variable. So it could be hard to equate behavior with device specificity in some cases as well.
Yeah, no, but I was talking about, you know, when people have compared their two devices that they've had, and the, you know, that they have, and then they, you know, make an assessment on a study participant and they get a 10% difference in readings. So I am assuming that when they're sharing this information with us, that those readings were taken at the same time, in the same, you know, study setting, having all those the same person, everything was same, except that the device was different. Only then it makes sense to compare the two device results and reach the conclusion that, you know, they're different by 10%. If everything else is all equal, it's the only difference between those readings is that one is with one device and the second reading is with another device. And then you know, it's a matter of concern to some extent that why is there a difference of up to 10% between those two readings. But otherwise, we all know that, you know, obviously these readings are going to differ based on the time of the year, any, you know, any exposure to any colorings that the participants may have had, or any other of those influencing factors can impact the readings. But when we are comparing the readings between different devices, then we have to keep everything else equal, that it's the same participant, the same setting, everything else is same. It's just comparing the readings between the two devices.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Oh, and Nancy was going to say just one comment about one thing that I'd really like to see is a more solid assessment on that expected variability. And the reason is when we do see changes between pre and post, I want to know if that is just within the 10% variability, or if that was actually a change that I can look at to be as significant in terms of improvement. Because some of these studies are now reporting changes that might really just be within that 10% window. And so that change, is that really a change, or is that just normal variability?
Or can we get an idea of the distribution of that variance? And so I feel on average, if it's a 1 to 2% with the greatest of 10, okay, we're not super worried about it. We know it's not again, an individual level, make a prescription for this person, but is it on average steady enough? We need to know that.
I'll just add on to what Henna was saying. The other factor that would be changing over time, which can affect any device that relies on a bulb. So this device relies on an LED light bulb, is number of ignitions for the bulb. So on-offs and just usage life hours. I don't know if those data are kind of recorded behind the scenes in the Veggie meter device or not, but that could be also something to kind of keep track of and just say, this, I don't know, if you had a big enough study and you could keep track of how many times you were turning the device on and off or usage episodes, that could be a way to examine or correct for kind of the time effect. If we think that that is a big issue and maybe over a multi-year study where it's not calibrated, that could be an issue. I also dropped 2 things that I just discovered on Google in the chat. So what we're talking about here with standardizing a device is really up the alley of National Institutes of Standards and Technology. And so for other devices, they provide standard reference materials. And it looks like they're working on coming up with it looks like they're in the data gathering stages of what are the normal reflectance properties of skin. And so it might be worth asking them if they have a suggested reference material that could be used. And that could be a way to also do a little check and see if just to watch and see if you get changes in readings over time, for instance.
Thank you. That's really helpful. We'll definitely have to poke around on that website and see what we can find. In the interest of time, I know we'd like to get to the other topics if possible. I don't think we're done with this conversation at all. I think this is a big conversation that warrants further follow-up. And in the survey, we're going to ask how often we think this group should meet. And so because of some of these issues, sorry, I have a toddler in the room now. Because of some of these other issues, maybe it'll be more often. But anyway, I'd like to introduce the second topic, which is proper cleaning and sanitizing as it pertains specifically to COVID. So if any of you are starting to get back into the field and you have some tips that you'd like to share, I think that would be great.
Well, Elizabeth and crew have been collecting data in our research office, so that's not in the field, and Nancy and her team as well. So, I mean, we have the normal COVID protocols that we have to use with our institutions. I mean, other than that, I don't know, Nancy, or if you or Elizabeth want to comment, but we've just been kind of doing the same stuff, masking and all that good stuff.
Yeah, and I think we sort of arrived upon just good. It's easy in our research setting to just do hand washing before using the device and just thinking about anything that might leave a residue. Or if you do use a lens cleaner or something, you just have to make sure that that lens dries and that you check it, because you could change the optical properties. I would suspect if you have a film on there from whatever you use to clean it.
So I collected data in fall semester 2021. And what I used was I took alcohol swabs with me to the school. So I had all the kids clean their fingertip with alcohol swab before we took the measurement. We cleaned the apparatus before we started taking the measurements. And again, between every class, we had we took measurements for 9 different classes with anywhere between 20 to 25 children in those classes. So this assessment was being done with 4th and 5th graders in an elementary school. So we just used alcohol swabs and some wipes to clean the equipment every now and then between measurements. And then my studies team, the students, they were wearing gloves while they were carrying out those measurements. And then everybody was masked.
Okay, any other questions about this one? Because this came up in the survey, so there were people asking about it. So I just want to make sure, did that answer the question?
I was just going to note too, when we were working on the recommendations paper, we kind of saw a variety of practices in terms of cleaning the lens. It looked like some people were cleaning the lens after every use. Some people were cleaning the lens after every couple of participants, especially when triplicate measures are involved. Cleaning in between each one can be a little bit time intensive. But in terms of a recommendation, we don't really know. Like Nancy mentioned, there's probably some sort of film or something that can impact measurements, but there's not a real recommendation from Werner about how often the lens bulb itself should be cleaned. So it would be interesting to hear different perspectives on that as well, just in terms of the lens, regardless of COVID.
Well, and we use ours in clinic, and so really, we're only using it on one participant at a time. I don't know, for a few hours, I guess. And so we're using the alcohol wipes as well, but we actually don't put it on the bulb itself. We put it on the, the lever and around the cradle area and things like that, just to avoid any kind of residue on the bulb itself. And obviously, adamant about hand washing. Things can get a little hairy. We work with Alzheimer's patients that masks don't always stay on, and there's a lot of face touching. So we really have to stay on the hand washing. Sometimes they have to wash their hands 2 or 3 times, and they say, well, can I just use sanitizer and this kind of thing? So the alcohol wipes we have used on the fingertip as well in that population. But I think in our cognitively normal populations, we just stick to the hand washing and the alcohol wipes around the bulb.
Like in an office setting, the hand washing probably works better, but in the school setting, when we are limited in the classroom time, the alcohol wipes become a little bit more efficient way of ensuring proper cleaning and sanitation. Because otherwise, with these young kids, elementary school age kids, if you start sending them for hand washing, then you lose out on a lot of time, and we're already in a restricted amount of time we have for making those measurements. So I guess it you would I think the decision to use whatever method for proper cleaning would also depend on the setting where you're carrying out your study evaluation.
And Hannah, I'll just comment that is part of the recommendations paper, is that, there are these they're not even really gold standards, but there's optimal procedures that we encourage, but at the same time, the constraints of doing research in the setting take priority, of course, right? I don't want to jump backwards, but I just noticed in the chat that Jessica Keller had a question that I don't think was addressed. And I just want to make sure it was addressed. She asked about if you're only using one device per study, should it be calibrated or should it not be calibrated between pre and post with Werner? And so I think I just want to circle back to Virginia. I think the advice he had given is that if you could send it to him once per year, that would be.
Yeah, that's what he told Susan, but we also weren't asking about interventions. So I think all these kind of potential scenarios could be drafted out and then him asked directly about situations.